Hey everyone, so today we're going to get into some really fascinating psychological research. I mean, this stuff completely flips the script on how we think about success and failure. We're going to unpack those hidden forces that decide whether we push through a tough challenge or just throw in the towel.
All right, let's kick things off with what I'm calling the motivation puzzle. Because honestly, that's what it is. We're going to start by poking holes in some common sense ideas about motivation, and you'll see why a lot of what we think we know about what drives us is, well, just plain wrong.
So think about this for a second. It's a really interesting kind of counterintuitive question, right? You'd think that being super smart or talented would be like a shield against failure. But what if, for some people, it's the very thing that makes them more fragile?
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it blows up a couple of big myths. On the one hand, we have what everyone thinks is true, like telling someone they're smart builds their confidence. Makes sense, right? But nope, the research shows it can totally backfire and make them terrified of failing. And what about this one? High ability means you love a good challenge. Turns out, not always. In fact, some of the brightest people are the ones who will do anything to avoid a challenge where they might not look smart anymore. So, if it's not just about being smart, and it's not about showering people with praise, what is it? What's the secret ingredient? What's the one thing that really separates the people who thrive on a challenge from those who just run away from it? Okay, so here's the answer. It all comes down to two different kinds of goals. This is the core idea from Carol Dweck's amazing research. The key, she found, is the type of goal we're subconsciously chasing whenever we're in a situation where we could succeed or fail.
Okay, first up, we have what's called a performance goal, and it's exactly what it sounds like. When this is your goal, your whole mission is to get validation. It's all about proving yourself. Every single task feels like a final exam, and the only question on your mind is, will this make me look smart or will this make me look dumb? And then you've got the total opposite, the learning goal. With this one, the whole game changes. The objective isn't proving anything, it's improving. It's about growth. Suddenly, challenges aren't scary threats anymore. They're actually the whole point. They're the only way you get better.
Okay, this table really lays it all out. It's like a flowchart for your brain. Let's follow the two paths. See, it all starts with what you secretly believe about intelligence itself. If you're on that top row, you believe intelligence is a fixed thing. You either have it or you don't. Dweck calls this an entity theory. And if you believe that, what's your goal going to be? Well, a performance goal, of course. You have to look smart. And the result of that, what she calls a helpless pattern, where you start avoiding challenges. But check out the bottom row. If you believe intelligence is something you can grow, an incremental theory, then your goal naturally becomes a learning goal. You want to get smarter. And that leads to a totally different outcome, a mastery-oriented pattern, where you actually go looking for challenges.
All right, so let's get practical. How do these goals actually drive what we do? Because this isn't just some abstract theory. These two mindsets, these two goals, they don't just stay inside your head. They lead to completely different and pretty predictable actions out in the real world. Just look at how it changes the kind of tasks we choose. If you've got a performance goal, you're always playing defense. You'll either pick a super easy task, a guaranteed win so you look good, or you'll pick something so ridiculously hard that no one can blame you when you fail. It's a clever trick. But someone with a learning goal, they're looking for that perfect Goldilocks challenge, the one that's going to stretch them and actually make them better.
And here's the absolute biggest difference: how we handle failure. This is where the two paths just completely split. For the person with the performance goal, a setback is a catastrophe. It feels like a final verdict that says, you're not smart enough, and so they just shut down. But for the person with a learning goal, a setback is just information. It's valuable data. It's a sign that says, okay, that didn't work. Time to dig in, try a new strategy, and maybe push a little harder. And this part, this might be the most mind-blowing piece of the whole puzzle. The very meaning of effort is completely different for these two mindsets. I mean, think about it. In the performance goal world, having to try hard is a sign of weakness. It's embarrassing. It means you're not a natural. But in the learning goal world, effort is everything. Effort is the hero. It's the very thing that makes you smart. Okay, so let's look at a real-world case study that brings this all to life. It's called the bright girl paradox, and you'll see how this whole framework we've been talking about solves a mystery that has stumped educators for a long, long time. So here's the observation. The data is super clear on this. In elementary school, girls are often at the top of the class, doing just as well as or even better than boys, especially in subjects like math. But then something happens.
As they move into junior high and high school, when things get tougher and more abstract, a gap starts to appear. So the obvious question is, why? Is it about some kind of difference in ability? That's what people usually assume. But the research gives us a much, much more interesting and powerful explanation.
Okay, so here's how it plays out, step by step. Bright girls often get a specific kind of praise. You're so smart. This accidentally teaches them that smart is a label they have, a fixed thing they need to protect. So then they hit something like advanced math, which is supposed to be confusing and hard at first. But for them, that struggle doesn't feel like learning. It feels like proof that maybe they aren't so smart after all. And that triggers that helpless response we talked about, and they start to pull away from the very subject they used to be great at. And you can totally see how this isn't just about girls in math, right? It could be anyone learning a new coding language or taking on a tough project at work.
And this chart just lays it out so clearly. Look at this. When researchers gave a really confusing and difficult task to a group of students, the top achieving girls showed a huge drop in their performance. They got debilitated. But the top achieving boys, they actually got better. They were energized by the challenge. So it had nothing to do with their starting ability. It was all about how they responded to that moment of struggle. Okay, so this brings us to the most important part. What do we do about it? Let's talk about how to actually foster a learning mindset. Because now that we know all this, how can we use it to build that more resilient, mastery-focused approach? In ourselves, in our kids, in our teams.
First things first, we've got to stop doing what doesn't work. And that means recognizing that the old ways, like only giving kids easy wins to build their confidence or constantly telling them how smart they are, that stuff just doesn't build resilience. It actually builds fragility.
So here's the playbook. It's actually pretty simple. Step 1, praise the process, not the person. So instead of "you're so smart," try something like, "Wow, I love how you didn't give up and tried a bunch of different ways to solve that." Step 2, frame challenges as opportunities to grow. That tough problem isn't a test of how smart you are, it's a workout for your brain. And maybe the most important one, step 3, treat failure as information. A mistake isn't a final grade, it's just a signpost telling you where to go next. And that really brings us full circle back to this powerful idea from Carol Dweck herself. It's such a paradox when you think about it. Being too worried about looking smart can be the very thing that stops you from getting smarter. It's something to really think about, and it leaves all of us with a really important question to ask ourselves: which goal am I chasing?